I certainly don't like to think of the brain as like a receiver or transmitter of consciousness. That's not my view at all. The view, however, is that it's closely related to the collapse of the wave function. In fact, essentially related, but not in the way that people used to speculate in the old days, namely that a conscious being comes along and causes the collapse. It's more the opposite of that view, that collapse is a physical process which we don't understand properly yet, and whatever consciousness is, which we don't understand even to a larger degree than the collapse of the wave function, depends upon the collapse of the wave function. And this is an idea which I certainly had, I don't know how far back it went, but when I was a graduate student, I went to courses of lecture. Yes, I was doing algebraic geometry, which is pure mathematics, but I went to 3 courses which were nothing to do with what I should have been doing. One of them was Bondi's course on general relativity, which made a lot of things clear in GR. That was very useful to me. One was the course by Dirac, and that I learned a lot of quantum mechanics, but also more importantly, in a sense, I learned to be puzzled about the collapse of the wave function. The third one was a course by a man called Steen, who taught me about Turing machines, so I knew what computability meant, and Gödel's theorem, so I knew what Gödel's theorem was. And I thought it was fantastic. The Gödel's theorem shows you that understanding something, this is not the way he put it, but it was sort of what he said, that understanding in mathematics, if you like, is not a computational thing. You can't make a computer into something which does understanding. And that's not necessarily the conclusion that people usually make, but it seemed to me that was the clear implication. You go through the Gödel argument and you say it constructs the sentence which says I am not provable by the rules. You see, clever to do it, very clever the way it works. But if you believe those rules, then you know that it's true. And you know it's true because you understand that what it is, you understand why the rules only give you truths, and that tells you something beyond using the rules. And that's the stunning thing about it. Using the rules is limited, but the understanding why the rules work allows you to transcend the rules. And to me, this was absolutely stunning. It says, well, understanding, whatever it is a phenomenon which you cannot encapsulate by computation. So I had this view at that stage, which I sort of played with and didn't do much with, until eventually I thought when I retire I'll have lots of time and I'll write a book on all this. Well, I think I heard a radio program which stimulated me to write this book while I hadn't still retired. That is to say, the book was The Emperor's New Mind. So I was trying to explain in that book why the phenomenon of consciousness cannot be part of, not just part of computation, but can it be part of current physics? Because current physics, pretty well, although there are a little bit of loopholes in the argument, you have to be a bit careful about that, but current physics you could put on a computer. I mean, there's a little, you have to know about approximations and how close you, so. There are things like that which make it a little more complicated, but roughly speaking, it tells you that current physics you could put on a computer, and therefore it's not the answer. If it's not the answer, where do we go from current physics? So general relativity, well, that's part of current physics, and you could put that on a computer. In those days, the computers were not very good, or the programming wasn't very good. Later on, it got very good, and people put spiraling black holes, and what do the waves look like, and lots of things you can put on computers. Sure. What about quantum mechanics? Well, the Schrödinger equation, you can put, there's certain difficulties about having a large number of parameters and all that, but it's still computational. What's the problem? How about the collapse of the wave function? So in my view, it's a bit, if you like, negative in the sense it's saying, where is the gap in current physics that could be non-computational? Sometimes people attack me and say, well, here's a problem, they must be the same because they're both problems. That's not what I say. The problem is that current physics does not contain a non-computable element, and so it has to be something where you and the collapse of the wave function is the clearest place with a huge gap.